So I'm sorry I can't be with you in London today. I had looked forward to coming down, but some health issues interfered with that. So I will speak, as Martin said, I've been involved with CCP-EM in various roles since the beginning, but I'll mostly speak about CCP-EM from the perspective of a software development team and you know how CCP-EM has affected our work. So at the LMB, where my group is, the group is more or less split in two halves, where half of the people in my group work on image processing software for cryo-EM structure determination, and that's mostly done in our open source RELION program. And then the other half of the group works on the application of these methods to amyloid structures from human brains and related to neurodegeneration, and that's all in close collaboration with the group of Michel Goddard in the neurobiology division of the LMB. So our relationship from CCP-EM, of course, comes most closely from the software development part of the group. So I asked Tom Burnley to provide me with some slides, which he very kindly did so. So when you see Tom's face here, Tom leads the CCP-EM team, and this slide is just, you know, what is the CCP-EM? It supports both users of cryo-EM software and the developers in making even better software. And they're based at the STFC site in Harwell, in this building here. And they've been going since 2012, 2013. Currently, the team is quite large, I would say. It's 12 people, so Tom leads this, and those 12 people are embedded in a much wider landscape of collaborations with people throughout the UK cryo-EM community and beyond, including, for example, people at EBI, but also people in the US, people from companies, etc. And I asked Tom, you know, what is CCP-EM mostly about? So there's two important aspects here, I think, and one is was the building of community of the cryo-EM fields. So remember, this is the grant was granted in 2012, so 2013 this kind of got going. So this was right at the cusp of the cryo-EM resolution revolution, when suddenly new detectors gave images with much higher signal to noise ratio than we had before, and new softwares allowed reconstruction of these images to resolutions that were suddenly sufficient for de novo atomic modeling. So suddenly you could do real de novo structural biology with cryo-EM software. And that led to a rapid growth in the field, and community building at that point of the development of the field was very important role of CCP-EM back then, and it continues to be so. So I think one extremely helpful and useful tool in community building was the establishment of a CCP-EM email list. And this currently has over 4,000 subscribers. It has been going very strongly since the beginning, and it's being used for all kind of job postings, postdocs, PhD student projects, etc., but also for questions about various cryo-EM softwares. And the good thing is it's really built community where both developers and users of different softwares can engage in discussions of how best to use software and answer questions for those new to the field. So besides the CCP-EM email list, I think another major community building tool has been the organization of meetings and workshops, both for training and for communication of exciting new science. And that was often then a combination of methods development, but also just discovery biology that was obtained using these methods. And there's just a list of meetings that were organized last year as an example. I think the most successful meeting of the CCP-EM team has now become their own spring symposium, where in the spring they organize a big meeting, which its aim is to celebrate new methods development, but there's also quite a bit of discovery biology at that meeting. And for example, this year's meeting in Nottingham had over 360 people attending in person and over 800 people attending virtually. Virtual attendance is free, which makes it, very low barrier and makes its impact over the whole world for people who can't travel to Nottingham and spend money to share their science. They can still attend online and learn from people science there. So yeah, I think it has steadily grown over the years, and it's now a major part of not only the UK cryo-EM community, but even worldwide. Many people say to me now, oh, the CCP-EM Spring Symposium is at least as good as the Gordon Research Conference in 3D EM, which has been almost since the beginning of the EM field, the standard meeting where everyone would go to. So I think this has been a major success for CCP-EM. Then, of course, the other part is that collaborative computing part of the CCP-EM, which is the distribution of software. And this started out by CCP-EM team helping developers cryo-EM software in the field, UK and worldwide, with specific software needs that they had. But lately, this has now converged onto the development of their own software suites, which is slightly more tied together, as I'll explain shortly. And I think that growth has happened kind of naturally, where they started out just helping all kind of distinct softwares in individual programming tasks, to the realization that it would be great to have all these individual tools speak better to each other. And how can we do that? Much like the CCP4 software suite is doing for X-ray crystallography, as Ivo just explained. So that has now led to this version 2.0 of the CCP-EM software suite, which has its own graphical user interface, which is called Doppio, and it provides an integrated framework to do single particle analysis or subtomogram averaging, all the way from the raw data that comes off the microscope to atomic modeling of the resulting structures and validation, and ultimately even submission to the databases at WWPDB. So the software is structured now as a collection of many individual tasks. So these are individual programs written by research groups from all over the world. And one example is, for example, our refinement program for doing 3D refinement of high resolution reconstructions in Relion. Another one would be from the group in Delft to look at local variations in resolution and how to best scale your maps to make them look best, etc. So these tasks are all combined into a piece of software which is called the CCP-EM pipeliner. And I think this is a crucial bit of software developed by the CCP-EM. It has been a project that was originally co-funded with a global phasing company by Gerard Bricogne. And I think this piece of software now provides a way to link all these individual building blocks from different research groups together into one workflow, where input from one job and each of the job is an individual program, leads to a set of output items, which then can be used as input into the next job. So thinking carefully about what's an input to a job, what does a job do, and what's the output of a job, and that incorporating all of that in a Python framework to build, if you like, graphs of jobs as you go through your entire computational project, is the mainstay of the CCP-EM software suite. And all of that is, or most of that is, free and open source software, including the CCP-EM pipeliner software itself that ties it all together. On top of that, now, and this is this new development of the Doppio user interface, this is something you can run from your browser. There's also a standalone app. And you can now control all these different jobs from your browser and get graphical feedback on the results, etc. And that bit is distributed for free to academics, but it's under a more restrictive license such that it allows CCP-EM to also obtain industrial income from pharmaceutical companies. So they license this part of the software out to industry, and the income then has allowed to grow the group. And Martin Wynn, who's there, he can probably tell you details about to the extent of which that has happened. So yeah, this is just a kind of look at how this looks like. So a refinement job will, for example, get input from a selection of particles, and it will have some sort of reference. It will then create a new map that can be used as input, for example, to create a mask to then use for post-processing. So the pipeliner builds these acyclic graphs where individual jobs all get linked together, such that when you're ready to process the map that results from your final post-processing, you can then look at the graph and say, oh, how did I get there? And you can walk back up this graph and see how you should write, for example, the method section to your paper. With this comes a extensive tracking of all the metadata that is involved with each of these individual jobs, the parameter settings, etc. And that in itself is then, for example, being used for automated procedures that are now in development to submit final maps to the electron microscopy data bank or the models to the PDB in a way that you don't have to fill in all these metadata fields upon submission yourself, but you can automatically extract these from your own data processing pipeline, so you don't have to fill in all these forms on the WWPDB website anymore. That is not entirely finished yet, but that's kind of where the whole development is going. So that you can run this pipeliner from the command line. There is also a Python interface which makes scripting very easy. And I think you can ask Martin Wynn, who's there today, about details how this all works. But I would recommend CCP-volumeEM to have all these close conversations with CCP4, CCP-EM, etc., because there's a lot of learning has gone into these projects that I think CCP-VEM can really benefit from. So how did CCP-EM get there? As I said, there was the 2012 initial MRC grant that then led to first recruitment of staff in 2013. And 2014, they were doing feedback of individual software packages, organizing their first workshops, etc. And then you can see there's several points in time where the MRC said this is a good idea, and the partnership grant was renewed. And the last time this happened was earlier this year. So I guess when you set up your new CCP-VEM, you have to make sure that whatever you do has enough buy-in from the community. This community building is really important because you need to convince the funding agencies that this is a worthwhile endeavor that needs continuous funding. For example, you can see the actual goal of making a collaborative software suite. The version 1 of CCP-EM suite was only released in 2016, which was after the grant already was renewed. Okay, I asked Tom about his opinion, what was important during the early stages, and he made a few comments by email, which I thought I would share with you. He said engagement with the community, both developers and users, was extremely important, especially in the beginning. And they focused on a core set of software developers and provided targeted help for their individual programs. And they explicitly set out to be maximally useful to the community through the organization of training events, often of the software from those core sets of developers. And he said, be careful, be targeted in your earlier developments. For example, rather than doing the big thing of a complete integrated software package straight from the get-go, he recommends look at the needs. What are the pressing current needs in the community? And for example, for CCP-EM, this was maintenance of of some of the community libraries before they then started to develop the CCP-EM software suite. And he says, don't try and do everything yourself, work with the community and for the community. One thing they created a lot of goodwill was by embedding themselves with facilities that existed in the community, for example, at Diamond Lysos and at the EBI. And he, for example, mentioned that in the early days, they were the de facto sysadmins for a lot of the cryo-EM processing happening at EBIC. He said it wasn't the most exciting work, but it was essential to get EBIC up and running, and it gave CCP-EM a good understanding of the tools that were there, what were problems, etc., with that installation that then led in to the developments later of their own software package. And then Tom said, and I thought this was quite interesting, he said, look for opportunities to grow when the time is right. He says in hindsight, he would have liked to have grown earlier and perhaps do that big software development slightly earlier than what happened in real life. So what is my view on CCP-EM and how the role it will play in our cryo-EM facility? I am worried about the increasing use of commercial software in the field. Of course, commercialization of software has very important benefits for the users in that you can have commercial companies who have resources from licensing their software that can be used towards the engineering of very easy to use interfaces. You can use engineering to make your software fast with the latest GPU cards, etc. And you can use your engineering efforts to have things very easily installable, etc. Now, currently, the commercial software that's most popular in the field is CryoSpark, and that's free for academics for now, but this is not guaranteed to be the case forever. And I worry that if at a given point in the future, most scientists only use commercial software, that then we'll all end up paying for it, because if academic software kind of can't compete anymore, then at some point the commercial interest will take over and they'll also start using academics. And kind of as a sign on the wall, I think it's Thermo Fisher who is good at squeezing money out of scientists, I would say. Now already when they sell you a Titan Cryos microscope, it comes with CryoSpark live processing, etc., pre-installed. So, and then I think the most important risk of that, if there would be only commercial software, it is not us paying for algorithms that we all developed ourselves. I think the most important risk is that in a closed source software environment, a lot of the incentives of scientific progress and a lot of the mechanisms of scientific progress are gone, and scientific progress will therefore be slower. Because I think it takes an open source academic software environments where people can build on each other's software to ever make things better and have the combined intellect of many individuals distributed over many groups in the world to keep scientific progress at pace. But of course, open source academic software has a big disadvantage that, for example, in my group, I get core funding from the MRC, but I get 2 posts, and those are understood to be driving new, exciting scientific developments, either in new algorithms or in new discovery biology. But using the type of academic funding to do investments in ease of use, into keeping your software up to date with the newest libraries, efficient execution on the newest GPU hardware, etc., is much harder to arrange in academia. And I think this is where CCP-EM, especially with its hybrid funding model that I've also just explained for the CCP4, can play a very important role. That money can be used to invest in engineering efforts for both graphical user interfaces, what's the user experience, how easy is it to use the software, but ultimately also in engineering efforts to make sure that the software is fast and it can be run on all kinds of different software, can be compiled on all kinds of different computer systems, etc. And then my vision would be that by providing this pipeliner software, where individual new software pieces could become part of this whole software suite, just by defining in a Python setting, what is the inputs of the jobs and what is the outputs. As long as your academic group anywhere in the world speaks this language, it would slot straight into the CCP-EM pipeliner software, and it could be distributed as a part of it. And thereby, the CCP-EM software can become a marketplace where we can try out new academic algorithms as they are published, and the barrier for installing new software, etc., hopefully will be reduced by the CCP-EM efforts. And so being able to try out each other's stuff very easily will then lead to the best algorithms coming to the top, and the progress of scientific research being maintained. So thereby, I think CCP-EM could act as a safeguard against the complete closing of the software that we use in the field. And I think X-ray crystallography with CCP4 and Phoenix has done a brilliant job of keeping academic software right at the edge of the field. But that's not guaranteed. There are other parts of science where that is not the case. And people tell me, for example, in mass spectrometry, almost all the software is commercial, and academic groups pay large license fees too. And that may affect scientific progress in that field. So I think this is a delicate point in the development of the cryo-EM field, and CCP-EM, I think, will play a major role beyond the very successful community building already that they've been managing to do. So that's all I had to say. I thank Tom a lot for his slides, and I feel really privileged to be a part of this whole community, which is not only in the UK, but extending now across the world with academic software developments, where we try and keep things moving forward as well as we hope we can manage. Thank you very much.